Ming, thank you so much for being with me today. It's a pleasure to get the opportunity to speak to you in front of the founders that are in the audience.
Thank you, Rana.
I wanted to start with um, the nature of the agentic offering today and how it impacts your enterprise clients. In another breakthrough year around the technology and AI, we've really spent the last 6 months focused on what's the step function change that the agentic offering has, not only for AI companies like yours, but more importantly for the clients which they have. And when you and I were discussing this, you said to me, the number one thing that the enterprise clients really care about is ROI. So how does agentic change the ability to animate clearly and demonstrate in short order accurately the ROI that an enterprise receives from working with companies like yours?
Yeah, it's first of all hard to understate how dramatic a shift on ROI agentic is. Because when you have software that can reason, that can plan, that can double back on itself to achieve a goal, that can use systems on behalf of a user, software that people don't want to use, software that there's a big learning curve on, it really changes the aperture of what you can build. And so, it is really hard to overhype this stuff. And at the same time, the scaled results are early. So, agentic AI systems that can onboard a client, agentic AI systems that can do know your business, know your customer workflows, agentic AI systems that can triage inboxes and process accounts payable. That literally all exists today. And we are seeing incredible results. These are all use cases agentically that are being done on Writer. And yet, the barriers to scale tend to be people and systems and governance and authorizations, much more than can the technology do it. And a year ago, you just did not get the accuracy, the quality that we get today, thanks to what the Palmyra series of models can do now agentically, ours and others. So, from an ROI perspective, I do think the enterprise is, in crisis. There's no better way to put it that way, because they have spent so much money on AI in previous generations that now everybody is asking for the ROI, but it is causing much more short-term thinking when it comes to planning out use cases. When all the agentic systems I just described, I mean, this is a wholesale reinvention of departments that have hundreds of people in it. Like, this is not something that's going to give you ROI week one, right? And so, there is just such a battle, I think, for strategy that's happening inside of the enterprise while the technology improves. And I think the real risk to enterprises is the agentic AI native version of them disrupts them faster than they can get out of the knot of strategy and ROI and execution.
Absolutely. When I speak to leaders in the enterprise, sometimes I hear, look, the ROI calculation that vendors want us to do ignores the enormous cost associated with the processing of these agentic models. A code word for saying these are like enrichment models for the large hyperscalers. I want to draw this into finer view because this is one of the places where Writer has really taken a very contrarian view. And so you're able to deliver a better ROI by having a better cost base associated with your implementation. How did you guys think about that choice? And what do you hear from enterprise leaders on?
Yeah. From the very beginning, Writer has been a partner to enterprises that guarantees outcomes, right? And that's very different in the era of generative AI than it was in previous eras of software, where it was taboo to talk about, like, did your software actually deliver something? Or, are you doing too much services? Or is this professional services, et cetera? And the professional services that we do around the implementation are helping people understand what true north is. What kinds of outcomes are you trying to achieve? Because, AI is so huge. When you buy a platform as big and powerful as Writers, we really have to understand what you're trying to do so that we can help you get there. Now, when it comes to being able to say, okay, we have achieved this outcome, right? How much did it cost us? Well, writer being full stack and being full stack from day one, it really has a huge impact on the total cost of ownership. So you're getting the model all the way up to the application layer, really in one package. Now, what's happened, which is very interesting, is, and I've done a 360 on this. I used to say 2 years ago, there's an over chatification of the enterprise. For so many of the use cases we do, dialogue in a chatbot is the wrong UX for it. With agentic, actually, that super killer agent type of dialogue interface, the models can do it now. And, the way that writer works is you've got your chat window, then you've got the writer computer, right? That is doing stuff on behalf of the user in response to the dialogue. And so the UX layer now, actually, it looks like a chatbot, right? And it's really what's behind the chatbot and the depth under the UX that really helps differentiate, right? Just the stack of preference and context and data, right? That allow you to actually make the outcome happen and outcome possible. So, yeah.
So let's dig there, because I'm sure like the founders that are listening to us are thinking, what does it take technically to build a product that is durable and reusable to the enterprise? And how does what you've just said underneath the layer differentiate writer from, let's say, like a wrapper to an API?
Yeah. We're very upfront with our customers. When we meet somebody new, we say, yeah, we compete with the hyperscalers and the labs and the point solutions, right? And literally yesterday, I was with a CIO of a Fortune 5 who said, "You're my fourth AI call today." I said, "That's not surprising, right?" Because it's such an explosion, right? And it's awesome. It's awesome. We want that. The enterprise needs that. And enterprises, those CIOs, they're going to 5-person startups to look for the innovation, right, that they're not necessarily seeing from the systems of record or the traditional SaaS companies. Now, what has allowed us to stand out, right, and continuously stand out? 5 minutes of someone peering under the covers, right, and we get a POC or we go forward in an evaluation. It is the clear multi-year track record of being able to lead the customer with the big technology shift, right, that the models provide. And what I mean by that is every 4 to 6 months, we have a big step function change in what Palmyra can do. And being able to productize ahead of that, right? Knowing now that our AI research team is working on enterprise context and enterprise memory, right? We know what that product is going to look like 6 to 12 months down the road, right? We can start telling customers about it, bringing in early feedback, planning, right? And being able to lead the customer through every wave is a huge advantage. We've got the highest renewal rate in AI. We've got the highest expansion rate in AI, and it's because the stuff works and we land and expand. I saw, I forget who it was, someone wrote a commentary, a VC recently on how, the land is easy in enterprise AI because everyone's desperate for something. It's really the expansion, and I think we're seeing that with, other startups that are partners of ours or startups that we've, done business with. It is the first year the enterprise thinks of as a pilot. So even when you are in there, you are constantly fighting for value, for mind share, right, for users. There is so much fatigue, right? Use this thing, use that thing. People are really fed up, and it's such a high bar to stand out from day one, but it's not like you're done, right, when you win the deal. I mean, it is constant. And I think we're starting to see folks flame out, right? There have been a kind of a slew of acquisitions of companies, startups selling to the enterprise that kind of didn't cross the Rubicon. And I think that's a shame because we need their innovation. I don't think it's going to come out of the big companies that buy them. The enterprise needs it, or the enterprise will lose out to the startups who are trying to disrupt them.
How do you combat the fatigue from the client, right? You go in and see a client. The client says, "You're the fifth person I've spoken to. I'm sure their board has told them they have to do something about AI." And their eyes are like glazing over, right? What are like the first handful of things that you need to say to a client to not only like stand out wider, but to like recapture their imagination about what can be done?
Yeah. So there are two things that we do, and this is all trial and error. I mean, I publicly say constantly we're a different company every 4 to 6 months. It can be exhausting for the folks in the company, right? Because you are just, as soon as you've, if you're a salesperson, as soon as you've memorized a talk track, well, actually, we pitch it a little bit differently now, right? As soon as you've really gotten into a use case, well, now we talk about it much more broadly, right? As soon as you've like gotten your muscle memory on a demo, actually now start here, don't start there, right? This is a audience that is self-educating as fast as the people in startups. So they're on Twitter and LinkedIn all day too. So don't think that like because you've got something that was excellent 4 months ago, 5 months ago, right, that like folks aren't already thinking about what's next. So, all to now I forget the question.
You already answered it, actually.
Oh, I did. Okay.
Which is like, how do you combat fatigue?
How do you combat fatigue? Well, no, that was all lead up. I think what we're able to go in and show very quickly is depth and domain expertise. So if we are with the CEO of a grocer, right, we're not talking about supply chain generally, right? We're talking about literally how do you get XX millions back because someone sent you one fewer crate of plums, right? How do you literally, and this is the demo, right? It's that level of specificity tied to an outside in view of what metrics really move the needle. And I think, we come in with depth and expertise and we pair that with mandate and challenge, right? Give us a mandate. I started using that word a lot in my conversations with executives because you can have all the vendors in the world. You've got Copilot in there, OpenAI in there, you're using Claude for code. You literally have everything and you've achieved no transformational outcomes. That is most people right now, right? And so if you aren't partnering with folks like Ryder in a mandated way, it is very hard to galvanize the resources right through the fatigue. So those are the two big things.
That makes sense. I want to shift our discussion a little bit away from the product to the company, Ryder itself. When you and Wasim, your co-founder, think about building a company that is sustainable, what are the challenges and opportunity points of doing that in an environment where the technology is constantly changing? So you need to keep up with it in the same way that your clients are keeping up with it to stay relevant.
Yeah. A product market fit in AI is a treadmill. And there's only, you cannot run at the same speed for very long, right? Before that treadmill gets turned up. And so it means running a product and engineering team in a very full stack way, in a very composable and recomposable way. If you're a team lead or on product or a team lead on engineering, that team isn't yours forever. Right. And so it's very different to be able to run at this speed than in a traditional, and this is our second company, and it really is exhausting. It is challenging to bring people along. And, the founders are sort of infinite trust battery, infinite energy battery. Your leaders may be that too. But it can be very exhausting for the front line who may not necessarily have all the context for why is this suddenly a new priority versus that. And, we work in seasons and, something that misses the window for last season we're not going to stop right this next season to kind of go back for a integration or a micro feature, right? And so the constant need to build product on technology that is like self-scaling, it's a very fascinating moment. I don't think it stops. I think we get stronger. I think we get more accustomed to the speed. I think, we as founders have been doing this for 5 years as Ryder, so we are there. But, we indoctrinate on what Ryder speed means. And a day is going to feel like 2 weeks at your last company. And the speed at which we expect you to make good decisions is unprecedented, right? And we've got mechanisms around helping people understand that, if they don't have the conviction to make a decision on something, the decision will be made. And so they're going to have to disagree and commit if they don't get there in that window, right? So, there are mechanisms to the culture that allow us to operate at that speed. But none of it is easy. And my guess is, everyone else has gotten there. I like to joke with our internal team that, we've got the best work-life balance in generative AI because we don't have tents on the floor. And people laugh, haha. But yes, it's a very, very intense work culture, but people aren't sleeping at the office. But we absolutely have competition that does. And, for everyone who is building, you know, don't slow down is my advice, but also take people with you because you can't scale if you don't have an army. And people need to be bought in to the speed and the context behind the speed for them to really, believe and do the work at the speed that you need them to.
Mm. We hadn't talked about this before, but it's come out in the comment now. How do you assess whether people are like moving fast in a straight line towards a goal, or whether they are so indoctrinated with the concept of speed that they happen to be like the Tasmanian devil? They're like running in a circle but going nowhere.
Yeah, and we do qualify in our indoctrination, right? Well, when we say speed, we really mean speed of iteration. And when you iterate based on new information. So if you aren't able to absorb new information, it is very easy to become Tasmanian devil, right? Versus actually, iterative learning. And we run the company on Slack, and a lot of the market intel, the customer intel, that comes in from a Slack setup that is literally like hundreds of channels popping off at all times. And so really knowing what your true north is and what you've got to be dialed into from a signal perspective, our very top performers can do that exceptionally well. And, you see them popping up in all sorts of Slack threads, really being able to connect the dots, right, in ways. And, our Slack is not like, 80 information headlines a day type of deal. Like people understand that everyone is consuming like the table stakes feed, right? It's really about, I heard this CIO say X about Y competitor, or like this use case that we put in front of Z resonated, even though they really should have been successful doing it with ABC approach. I mean, that is the level of insight that, our go-to-market army really provides. And we've got a ton of technical depth in our salespeople, obviously a ton of technical depth in our solution architects and our forward deployed engineers. And I think we are really stepping up to the plate to larger mandates from customers. They are not getting transformation from, the big spending ticket items, the lab plus a consultant, or, the like hyperscaler that is leaned in with engineering resources. Like that is not working. And so, we've got a real opportunity to step into.
Let's finish on this point of leaders, not just in AI companies, but think like the enterprise writ large. What are the skills that leaders, builders, and innovators need to have today that they did not need to have a year ago, 2 years ago, in order to make their businesses a success in the new agentic AI paradigm?
Yeah. One of our leadership principles at Writer is leaders lead from the front. They are in every level of the business. They can step in, they are hands on. And I think the IC leader is going to be the theme of this next decade. What allowed leaders to climb the ranks, like I'm talking enterprise here over the past 10, 20 years, is this increasing scope that has been really like defined by organizational heft, by budgets. We are moving to a world where execution is abundant. And it's not the execution capacity that is limited. It is your ability to orchestrate that capacity. It is your ability to reorient your firm from a org chart to an orchestration graph, right? It's how AI and people work together. And I think the more creative, the more highly collaborative, the more hands-on a leader is, the more successful they are going to become. And the outcomes and outputs, regardless of what, your chain of command looks like, are going to be the new barometers at successful organizations. But, it's a huge sea change. And I think, we have a very human-centric view. We have a very human-centric approach when we come in and implement AI. It's, AI hackathons and happy hours and, all hands. And we really get people learning in a fun way. And when you think about how so many junior entry level jobs, right, are going away or there's fewer of them.
Yeah.
We need leaders who can think about what the junior ladder looks like at their company, even with full AI implementation. And so we need folks who think much more like philosophers, right, about what makes a excellent employee in their company, right, and designing paths to bring those people up. Um, and so it's going to be a very different leader, I think, that takes the helm of a Fortune 500 company in 10, 15 years than, the skills that we see today.
Yeah. It's almost like you're shifting from like dollars and armies to basically details, execution, and philosophy.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really big change if you think about like the middle managers today have been like in the business, let's say for 10 to 15 years, and they need a complete change of mind for the
Yeah.
floor, basically.
Yeah.
That's really hard. May I can't thank you enough for taking the time with me. It's always a pleasure to spend it with you. And I'm sure that the audience that we've just been speaking to has also really enjoyed this.
Thank you, Nat.